Another week, another round of tournament games to cover. This week, we got a lot of hyper offense. We got a lot of big-ass Glast as well. So I'm very excited to talk about this mon with y'all today because it's a thing that had been getting a lot of respect from the players since week 1, just through my talk with some of them when they were building and asking for a little bit of advice. Definitely picked up on some Glastrier anxiety in the builder, so it's very cool to see it finally come out. We're going to talk about it in these games. If you've been enjoying the tournament coverage and all the other content, go down and subscribe right now. I'll always reaffirm this. There's like 50% of you that are not subscribed, so we will hit 5k subscribers, our end of the year goal, tonight, if you just go down and subscribe right now. So, go on, go do that. I got time. We good? Okay. So, in his first game, we got a feature for Zaya early on because his team has been cranking out some bangers. He's been cranking out some bangers. And this week's no different. We see Glast on both sides, mind you. Shout out to Danny as well for putting some respect on the horse. We see both sides still playing Glast. And what's interesting about this Pokemon is it got a lot of hype, like, day 1 of its drop. Because people expected it to be pretty overpowered. And it's pretty clear to see why. Terastallizing on bulky mons this whole gen has been very, very potent. And Glast has the benefit of hitting like 20 freight trains off rip, while also getting that snowball potential with its ability. So, people are a little bit cautious about how balanced it could be. Because, okay, generally its limitations have been speed, and its typing not being very good. Mono Ice on a very bulky mon, it's like, okay, well on bulky, maybe it offsets the ice typing some, but then I still don't feel like I'm getting full use out of my stats. And people thinking, okay, maybe I just turn myself into like a steel type, or a water type, or a poison type, or a ground, literally any good defensive typing. And that just makes all the problems go away. And we didn't really see any of that happen. It just has remained completely absent from use basically anywhere, whether it's ladder, whether it's tournaments, ever since it dropped to NU. But we're finally getting to see it. We're seeing that Swords Dance set come back, and it's come back in a big way, so let's see it. Now, Danny, of course, with HO, is always leading off with the Lycanroc, and we're just going to see the standard sequence, Stealth Rock into a Celerock. Brizai brings in the Salazzle here. Not winning anything else to take the Celerock chip, and also not really vibing with Salazzle in this kind of offense matchup, where it's probably never going to be bulky enough to really do what it wants. And although it's fast, you're looking at several Pokemon that are either just as fast, can have priority or speed boost, I guess even count Grim in there, or can just Terra and make your life miserable. So he analyzes, okay, just go to my Lazzle here, dodge this Fire Blast so it can trade pretty effectively with Danny Salazzle. And we see him Nasty Plot, knowing he's got a Salic Berry. So if Rizai went for another Fire Blast, it would have actually been really, really dire for him. Smartly, he does not. He knocks off a potential item, knowing that he himself has used Salic Berry Lazzle before, and that's worth scouting for. And Danny sacks the Lazzle here because he knows it's Scarf Shaman if it's being used to revenge kill. He just wants to see what the Shaman's going to lock into, and now we see Big Glast. Unfortunately, it does nothing because Destiny Bunk Quillfish says no fun allowed. So that was really funny to see when I was watching the replay. Now we see a Scyther here, and another really cool tech, Terra Fire Scyther. Works like any other Terra type that just doesn't give you a weakness to do Wing Beat. Blocks a Will-O-Wisp as well from potentially like an Altaria, or even like a Miss Magius, even if you're under one of those. And he's able to win that trade. Get revenge, go back to the Sid. And we see Danny just decide, hey, if I get chip on this Glast, that's really good. So we Poltergeist it, and Big Grim comes in. And Big Grim says, hello, I still can Terra. I'm Terra Fire. Now, I will say this. I have seen way too much Terra Fire Grim this week. Please stop. I believe the idea is just Jolteon commonly plays a sequence with Grim where you've got Terra Fairy, denying the potential for Sucker Punch revenge killing. And I think the idea is I can just prevent that trade from happening while also gaining really useful matchups into like Copperajah, into Earthworm, because now I'm resisting their Heavy Slam. And even this one I don't think is as important because a lot of these Grim run sub anyway, but you could also maybe get a sub versus like or not a sub versus, but you could also block Whisper Maltaria. I think what this tells me is he's probably Sucker Punch. Or like Drain Punch, maybe? I think he's just non-sub if he's earning Terrifier. Because I believe that is a advantage you should take. So, he bulks up twice, knowing this Glass is not going to be able to break him. Even with the high horsepower, his horse is just not strong enough. And he is simply fodder for the Grim playing a little bit dangerously. I don't think that crit matters. I guess he's a pretty offensive set anyway. Shaman comes out, and yep, there's the Sucker Punch. Pops the Shaman in the mouth. And even though this Copper Roger does reveal itself to have Earthquake, it just does not do enough damage to shout out to that Crunch. Barely doing enough to avoid a KO. Almost giving Forai a chance to win. But Danny, even though his horse did not do... I'd say that Forai's horse did a little bit more. Danny still finding a way to win with this Grim. Now, game 2. Now, I'm covering this game. I don't know why I'm covering it. Because you're gonna see why, but we get another hyper offense team. This time Casalis bringing a lead Earthworm with some mods you don't always see as well. You got Tatsu on HO, which is a nice option, as it gives you a little bit of removal too. So I don't recall if we even see items on like say Scyther and Houndoom, or even like Jolt into Sid. But having Spin on Tatsu does give you a little bit more leeway with these items. You don't feel like maybe you need to go Boots at all. You could try out something like maybe a Violet SD Scyther, or something like Sash Houndoom, for example. And Tatsugiri remains a really good sweeper as well. Or at least Wall Breaker with a little bit of late game potential. You get the spin boost. You get that speed letting you outrun anything like, say, Passimian, Fitzscarf. I was trying to think of more Scarfers, but it's really Passimian. As well as anything unboosted like your Jolteons of the world, your Salazzles. Even your Hisuian Electrodes if you want to go all the way down there. At least I think, right? Axch? No, I think Hisuian Electrode might still be faster. I don't remember what its speed caps at. Yo, it might be it might be faster than plus 1 Tatsu. Anyway, you get the idea though. It's a nice option for HO. And Eternally, he just want to try out some Mabostiff, man. I don't think it's a very good mon. But it definitely strikes me as a tournament mon, where you could find someone that builds in such a way where Mabostiff is not getting as heavily pressured and actually could just break. So, if you think about a Mabostiff matchup, you're just looking for someone that is not spamming out faster mons 24/7. And I do think that Casalis' first 3 weeks, he generally was running some slower teams. So something like Banded Mabostiff felt like it could have some decent leverage in those matchups. And he's got nice little Articuno Galar as well. This could be the Future Sight set, so you set up a Future Sight, pivot in Mabostiff, and then even things resistant to Dark are going to be taking a ton, because you got to deal with that proc hitting at the end of your turn anyway. So, nice synergy there. We also see him doing the Shaman Jolteon core. This team very reminiscent of his matchup versus T. Nunez in week 2. Very similar idea here. So, Earthworm lead, Gardecuno lead here. A turn, not actually Future Sight though, he's just freezing glare, and he gets red carded out into the Shaman, so obviously he has to switch. He goes Quill, deciding he also wants to get in on the Hazards War, and I remember someone pointed this out. Sometimes the spikes just don't show up. I think that's just a bug with the replays. I rewatched the replay before I started recording, and I guess when you press reset, sometimes it messes up, so there you go, there's the spike now. I don't get it, but it happens. So spike goes here. Kush can always just Volt Switch here. I'm sent out. Me! Because I'm Trossum. Gonna take that T-Bolt like a champ. Let's go! And it's already up his rocks here. As the worm comes out and reveals the very devious set of Wrap. That's right, you heard me. Wrap Earthworm. Nice little option on a lead set. Just guarantees that you can get a little bit of guaranteed damage as well. So some of these mons that maybe would switch into just your Heavy Slam plus whatever other move you could run, there's at least a bit more forced damage. And then you see an exchange like this, where Wrap plus Heavy Slam just pressures Gardecuno to such a degree that it has to keep recovering, and it can't really comfortably get all its HP back. Like even here, Heavy Slam is putting it under half, so Eternally forced to just Freezing Glare to Worm, and now Tatsu comes in. Knowing a spin's coming, a turn just stays in, and now he goes very intelligently into the Shaman, knowing once again, this Tatsu's gonna surf. It would KO Gardekuna from that range. It would also get chip on a Roger switching, so Shaman comes out, Revenge kills Tatsu with ease. And now the Scyther comes in. Quillfish is what's sent out, of course, to check it. Sword Sand's a little scary, but it doesn't matter because Casalis times out randomly on turn 17. Yeah, so I remember watching this replay, and I immediately messaged Attorney, I'm like, hey, don't think I didn't notice what happened in your game. You know, I'm to talk about maybe some other things in the other games I was confused a little bit by. It was like, hey, I saw your game too. Don't think I didn't notice how you won. That's what the response of, dude, no! My guess here is Casalis was calcing the Scyther versus Quillfish dual wing beat, maybe seeing if he needed to Terastallize or not. Now, I don't know if this was Terra flying. It could have been something like Terra grass, Terra ground, Terra normal even. We saw... No, we don't. It's not that we saw. We see later. Quick attack on Scyther is a decent option on HO. So he could have been like Terra normal quick attack, for example. There's a lot of options that you got. If he was Terra flying, that's my guess. He was calcing maybe if he needed to Terra. He could have also just been calcing whether or not he KO'd with dual wing beat regardless. To know, okay, do I stay in? Do I SD again maybe? Etc. Definitely a very funny way to lose in a major tournament like this. Now we get to the true highlight of the week. Now, you may be wondering why I'm saying that. Look at Elias' team. And full disclosure, I have not watched this game since the first time I checked it, so I'm kind of rewatching it with you guys right here. In my predictions post, I said I thought Axch would beat Elias. I have not liked Elias' play over the last couple weeks. I thought he's played pretty badly past the early game. He got very, very fortunate to win week 2 versus GXC. I believe that most times he is going to lose that game because he tossed his entire lead, and GXC outplayed incredibly well. It's hard to outplay every sucker punch. And in week 3, we also saw him get, I forget who he played. If I check other names, will it ring a bell? No, it will not. But week 3, rest assured, I do remember Elias also got handily outplayed then. And I was like, okay, I don't know about it. Axch has also looked a little bit shaky. I favored him a little bit coming into it, though, because I thought he didn't look as shaky. However, I had a caveat in my post. And that was that if Elias snorts a line of crack before the game, if this boy goes back to his roots with building, which is to make something like this that looks like nothing makes sense here, he has a good chance. And look at what my man did. We are back in Prime Elias Psy Central, baby. What is going on here? And I don't even care, man. We're just going into it. And the Goodra ends up being physical. I do remember that, which we get a really funny Goodra Gardekuna sequence. You're going to have to wait to watch that. We got nice little Alolan Raichu as well, which, unironically, kind of okay this game. It just kind of sucks that you've got to deal with H-Trode. This mod does not see any use, really. It's just hard to use over Rotom-Mow or Jolteon. Both are better. H-Trode's really weak. Can't really do a ton. Those other mons have a ton more that they offer teams. And just a little bit more set versatility, I would say. Like, H-Trode still has versatility and, like, item. You can do things like specs, you could do boots. And there's a little bit of move slot versatility with options like T-Wave and Foul Play and Terra Blast. It's just kind of at the end of the day, the mon's basically going to be doing the same thing no matter what. Whereas Jolt and Rotom-Mow have a little bit more say in roll-on team. You know, Rotom-Mow can go like Scarf, it can go Utility, it can go Nasty Plot. Jolteon can go CM with Volt, it can go CM with Sub, it can go Specs still, even if I don't think it's as good as it once was. And it's still a good set. But, I mean, Alolan Raichu would probably run this team down a lot more effectively. Imagine, like, Nasty Plot Alolan with Psyshock in this matchup if this was a, Jolteon. Jolt would still be annoying, but it'd be, I think, a little bit less annoying, maybe, because it doesn't have the immediate stab attack to eventually kill you with, you know? Hell, this could even be Terra Dark, and to have, like, Foul Play to mess with this, so a lot of worries there. But I also like the Croak if it's, like, the Ice Punch set. If it's not the Ice Punch set, Croak still looks quite strong here. Let's get into it, man. Elias leads off with this Gudra, and here we get this wonderful sequence. This is physical Gudra, and I do believe Elias brought this one of the weeks, right? I swear I remember seeing a physical Gudra out of him. This might have been the first time, and I'm misremembering, but we see physical Gudra knockoff pressuring this Articuno far too much. So, also that's a nice crit. So even though that future sight's up, you know, I'm still a Gudra. I'm very, very bulky. I don't take that much. And he just gets to keep spamming knock. Like, all these recovers don't mean anything. They don't. Because who cares? You're not getting back to full. So he's eventually forced to U, brings in Poros just to get knocked and lose his boots. I think it was boots. Yep, lose a boot. So if the Gligar and Chansey can get their hazards up, it's wonderful. Good double here. As you know, you can get a knock here. You always assume Gligar would come out. You just get to knock it a highlight off of whether it stays in and use or off of the Chansey. Now here, I don't know why Axch Terras. I guess he just wanted to not take extra seismic damage, but this Terra very early, I don't think gives you a ton. Now, I think maybe his logic is, I don't like taking seismic with much of anything. He could have been worried about bringing out Gligar immediately as well, because you want to keep it around for the Croak. And I think he just doesn't want to go Gardecuno. It might even be in seismic range. I don't know if 35% HP. I don't know if that ends up being, you know, 100 or less and it gets KO'd. I think he just didn't want to have to force, you know, go through another, you know, spam recover sequence, only to inevitably lose. So, anyhow, we're back to here. Rocks go up. Now, since he Terra'd early, he does have the spin blocker. He doesn't go to it because he knows that spin probably isn't coming out immediately. So he predicts the crash very adequately. Now, yeah, I was going to say now he could switch out, but no, he doesn't. So now I'm just left wondering why we, you know, why we Terra'd it. But it's okay, it's okay. He stays in. They do get spun on. Gardecuno, though, comes out versus the Gligar. The problem is, of course, this Chansey from Elias kind of sits versus this entire team. Especially with Poros taking another hit. Every time Poros takes damage, Chansey becomes more and more of a win condition itself. As what over here is breaking it? This is an example of where something like Jolteon or Rotom-Mow might actually be a little bit better. Because, I mean, hell, if I'm Terra Ghost Jolteon with CM, I could have actually, like, beat down Chansey, for example. Now, of course, not in this game, because this went for its Terra. But Jolteon could have done something like that. You know, maybe even Rotom-Mow, same idea. Nasty plot with Terra Ghost. Maybe there's an angle. Unfortunately, there's not with this. So, H-Shard comes in, takes that Volt Switch like a champ. Only to let the Gudra back in. And again, every time Goo comes out, it's pretty scary because you have to let Gligar get knocked. And here's where we see that it is just straight up physical. We see the double here. As this gets Ice Beam. It's like some weird, I don't know, I think it's E-Belt. Yeah, dirty set. But then we know Quill can come out versus Chansey. I mean, there's like the one caveat to that early Terra. He does have the Chansey check through Terra Ghost Quill. The problem is, it gives up anything else being allowed to Terra and maybe having a better shot at actually breaking Elias's team, you know? So Tauros comes out, as this is his only way to pressure anything that's especially bulky. Elias, of course, will always go Gligar versus that Tauros. Good Hurricane Chip. I mean, if this mon gets low, Tauros could still maybe somehow do it. It has, like, no health. You'd have to get rid of the Alola Chew, and that's going to be very tough. Especially since it's boots, because you can't actually rely on Hazard Chip. And once again, the stupid Chansey comes out. Draco Dodge kind of sucks. But, you know, what's happening? He lands a Draco and then the Chansey soft-boileds. It's not that consequential. But this little guy comes in. Again, he's just looking for damage where he can get it. You're trying to find any sort of win condition. So you want to get as much chip as you can and open up the gates for something on your team. And of course, Gligar now, past the point of no return. It is too low to long-term check the Croak. Good rock up there. I mean, you always sack Gligar. As the recover from Lug comes in. This will drop the Draco. And I mean, this is where you do see Chansey's limitations, because it can't run boots. And when you lose the Eviolite, you do take more damage. The problem is, a Gudra's not Specs. And I think this Chansey also has some special bulk investment. I might be wrong there, but It is what it is. Also, that Raging Bull damage roll is disgusting. What is 21, man? Come on. But yeah, I mean, it just... Even still, it's a little hard to pressure Chansey, just because the mod is so bulky. And now the Croak will come out, and it just wins here. I mean, the Gligar is too weak, and you're not actually worried about this mon. And he even Terra Darks to make sure that his knock will KO Little Quill, while also knowing that he can go for a Sucker Punch versus H-Trode. At least that's my guess. I would assume he's got Sucker, right? Again, the Goodra always comes out versus the H-Trode. He actually outruns Axch's Goodra too, which is pretty litty, as the little kids say. Knock here doesn't actually KO, which is funny, but it doesn't matter. Elias has too many mons. And even that Chansey will just eat up the H-Trode's hit no matter what at the end. So it comes out here, Leaf Storms, and then the Croak comes in and actually reveals that it was Scarf. So he Terra Darked just because I guess Knock might be nice to hit with more later on too. Like you need to get a stronger Knock maybe versus Quill. That's my guess. Maybe he just wanted to show he was Terra Dark. I don't know. On to the next game. Taki versus GXC. Now, these last two games, we see the theme of, hey, there's a sub now. Because, 4 weeks into the tournament, you're starting to get an idea of how your players are doing. And maybe you start thinking to yourself as a manager, okay, some slots aren't working as well as I'd like them to. What do I do? So Taki from OU, start of 1 and 2, I believe there. Moving back down to NU after having quite a lot of success in individuals over the year. Replacing, I believe it was T. Nunez. So, kind of just looking for a breath of fresh air, I think, in the slot more than anything. And we get a matchup with them versus GXC, which is definitely an interesting start when you're coming back to a metagame. GXC is widely considered the best player in the pool, at worst, maybe the second best player in the pool, to Danny. And once again, we see an HO, which is kind of just one of those, hey, welcome back! Don't lose too quickly! Kind of disgusting, but Taki is a pretty similar team to Eternally. And that you got that Jolteon Shaman core. I mean, we can even just compare the teams. Jolteon Shaman core. You've got, a Copper Raja. You got something with Spike, too. See, Quillfish and, Colossal both. You got, then there's a Mabostiff and a Gardecuno. So this is the Gardecuno and this is the Mabostiff. See, it makes so much sense. But if we're looking at any one threat from, like, GXC, is there one of these sweepers that could give a lot of issue to Taki's team? My answer is not really any one, but I would say Grim is probably the scariest. Again, we just saw Terrifier Grim from Danny earlier on. If this was another Terrifier Grim, it is actually quite potent into Taki's team. So that's going to be something that she has to navigate around adequately. Glast, once again, though, matching up into an HO, it's going to have a pretty good matchup because it's not going to go down easy. If Tog really needs to, she could Terra it as well. Depending on its Terra type, maybe it takes on, say, Salazzle better. And then once you get rid of that, a lot of stuff's opened up for you because your Colossal's no longer what you have to rely on just to check the stupid Lazzle defensively. And of course, Colossal reintroduces those Grim Snarl sequences that we just talked about, where you don't want to risk. If you're Will-O-Wisp, of course, you might not even be Will-O-Wisp. You could be double. Why am I saying double stab? Just say dual stab. You dual stab with like spikes and rapid spin, and at that point, whether or not it Terras is kind of irrelevant. And yeah, let's get into it. Jolteon lead, because the Lycanroc is always leading. So we're just going to see Taki try and get rid of the stupid dog early on. Take the Accelerock chip. You figure you've got the Shaman, so if you need to take the Jolteon sequence later on, it's not the worst deal ever for you. As the Cole comes in, Poltergeisted, as this helps open up stuff for Salazzle, which is why GXC, I believe, sacks the Decid here to the Heat Crash. You get all this chip on Cole, it's actually a pretty decent deal for you. It even opens up stuff for Grim, as we see this is a pretty physically bulky Cole. So, Grim gets a lot happier seeing that mon gone. Salazzle gets a lot happier seeing its, like, the counter damn near gone. It's a good deal. And we see, of course, The Glast trading with Jolteon there. Salazzle now comes in, easily stays in because you know you're going to take that Volt. And he Fire Blasts. There's no Fire Resist alive on Tog's team. Fire Blast is just very free. I will call this a 150-50, by the way. It might have been Terra Dark Raj, and looking at this team from Togs, my guess would be it was Terra Dark. However, sometimes you see Terra Dragon, so it could have been bad if that was Terra Dragon there on the Fire Blast. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered to you, but yeah. Now the Grim comes in, we see Terra Fire once again, and this is actually looking pretty scary for Taki's team. He goes for some player off. This player off chip's very, very important, as you'll see later on. Because, I mean, yeah, just do a lot of damage. And we're going to see this come in on the predicted Earth Power, because again, Shaman cannot revenge kill you with anything else, and if it locks into a different move, then you probably win with Grim, or get a very good... Actually, I don't actually know if you even have that good of a shot because of what this Magus ends up being. Anyhow, he SD's up with Scyther, Miss Magus comes in, and ends up being Scarf with Destiny Bond, so kind of tough. Me personally, ISD there, but I'm different. And now here, we see a little bit of an unfortunate end to this game. So Taki Terra Fairies to Earth Power, right? This makes sense. But we do not see a player off come out. And I don't think it actually mattered. However, I do believe it was a little bit of a misplay by JXC here. Taki ends up winning the game. Why do I think it's a misplay here? Well, we saw player up do about 39-40% to the Shaman earlier. And Taki always was good at Terra here. Shaman's almost always Terra Fairy. I think you just play rough, always. Now, we saw this would have still lived in the combination of player up into Sucker Punch. However, you could have gotten a crit, I guess. That's just all I'm saying. Yeah, I think you played to the crit there. It's maybe a little bit better. I get it, you don't want to miss. But, you know, we saw based on player off damage, Crunch to Sucker wouldn't have KO'd either. And I think with Terra still being available, you got to go for player off and just hope that you're able to do more damage and put it in range of that Sucker crit. But it is what it is. Welcome back to the NU slot, Taki. Don't lose. Or else. Anyhow, this last game, Avarice versus Watashi, as I mentioned, Avarice filling in for Meru. Their Meru started off 0-3 in the slot. I blame Shiloh for not drafting NU support, but it is what it is. You know, never accused him of having good connections to the NU tier. Okay, so, this matchup. Avarice has a very unique team, very, very offbeat, with a lot of mons you don't see too often. Electros and Alolan Persian being the two stand out of those, but also even Hoopa. Hoopa's not that common of a Pokemon, in spite of it being something you'd think it would get a lot of use because it's an incredible breaker. Offers a decent amount of defensive presence too, just through its natural special bulk. You're able to pivot around some threats like, say, Salazzle, Goodra, even Jolteon. You can maybe, you know, you can win like a one-on-one with. So it does have some nice traits for an offensive mon. Also, Ghost is an incredible offensive typing. With Terra Fairy, you can avoid some mons like Grimmsnarl or Terra Dark Toxicroak from having as easy of a time with you as they otherwise would. It's a pretty good deal. And in this matchup, I mean, Hoopa puts in some overtime. You're gonna see. I think Fooly ends up making a misread with their Raj at a point that really throws the game for a loop, but also this Grimmsnarl. You cannot pay me enough money to say with absolute certainty what its set was. I think I know what it was, but you'll see for yourself. Bruxish lead versus Persian. This always has to flip here. So we get a very nice and slow powering shot from the Avarice. Ah, you can tell I'm really in it today. We get a nice parting shot from the Persian. Into the Poros here. And we're going to see some doubles. Gligar comes in here as the Palisand comes out. And this allows for hazards to go up from Avarice's side. And Avarice decides, hey, if you defog, I don't care. I'm U-turning into my Hoopa. I know, you Will-O-Wisp me even better. I keep a Spike now. And I U-turn into my Hoopa. And the Spike's really important too. As you see with the Shadow Ball chip, if that Spike wasn't up, Roger would have actually been able to protect here and get out of range of the next Shadow Ball. Instead, it's just two-shot. And this is what I mean, by the way, by the potential misplay. I'm kind of unsure why this stayed in. Now, there was a full health Grim. And we see the Grim come out here. What I ended up being confused by was, why aren't we going Grim now? If it takes spikes, I've got a couple questions. Like, are you banded, maybe? Or are you Assault Vest? Because if it's Assault Vest, I think it probably should have always come out. But maybe fully expected, okay, Grim switching's a little obvious. So I'm going to just stay in, try and get Stealth Rock, maybe try and get a knockoff, something like that. The alternative is this Grimstar was just straight up offensive with, like, CB, and it just never was taking the hit well enough to begin with. Now, I don't know what this 31% means in terms of damage. In fact, you know what? Let's calc it. I'll be right back. Alright, I calced it. This ends up being Choice Banded Grimmsnarl, so fully just deciding, hey, you know, Grim, maybe they still don't know what my set is, but it's also kind of risky to go to it. Because what I assume was Specs Hoopa, I don't remember the damage exactly, but I believe from games I've played, no, I know for a fact from games I've played, I remember Brina, that is Specs Hoopa. So he just decides Grim's gonna take too much, I can't risk it. Anyway, something like that. Anyhow, once again, we see a nice little U-turn. Goo comes in this time, not caring about the potential Psyfangs or Ice Fang. Just assuming he lives a hit. Also revealing that it's like some Iron Press stuff, or Acid Press, I guess you say, because it's Acid Armor. Unfortunately, Body Press does not do damage. So although you get some chip, yeah, I don't know, do we call that chip still? Parting shot with Persian now though, Hoopa gets to come right back out. You do not care about the potential Shadow Ball. And this actually ends up being the Rocker, which I probably should have noticed. That makes more sense to be the Rocker on this build. And now the Grim comes back out. We see another Spirit Break come out from it. Does a lot to this Gligar, and it will be able to two-shot it from here. But, I'm here to tell you right now, it does not matter. Well, no, why? Because there's a Poros. There's also a Hoopa, though, which outspeeds. And here, by this point, of course, Avarice already knows this is banded, so Focus Blast will very easily KO. Avarice also makes a very aggressive play here, Focus Blasting the Lazzle to do 1 more billion damage. I mean, that's disgusting. But most importantly, we see the set. We see that lefties. We see Toxic. Avarice knows at this point, oh god, I'm playing Ranbats, aren't I? Sub-Toxic Protect Lazzle. Avarice makes a very nice play here as the Lazzle Terastallizes. Goes for a U-turn. Not wanting to risk Terra Ground potentially coming out here. And just getting rid of this thing's Terra is really good. Because now the Lazzle's low, so it doesn't actually, you know, do as much as it'd like to. And Poros comes in. I'm going to see it spam off a good few Raging Bulls versus the Altaria. The sole point of this is you're just trying to force the Roost out of it. Because once Hoopa gets back in, it is picking up a KO. So it's in Roost Force range. Hoopa now can come out. And Avarice just going to Terra Psychic here and fire off some of the most powerful attacks you have ever seen. The Psychic obliterates the Altaria. Lazzle now is forced in to have to go for a Protect into Flamethrower combination to actually take down the Hoopa. But it doesn't matter at this point, because there's a Scarf Poros on Avarice's side. And it is simply going to EQ. Is Jover. Bop bop. Yeah. That's this week's games. We had week 4 of SCL conclude now. Week 5, I believe we got the same players playing. I don't recall seeing any substitutes made, so will Taki and Avarice continue this momentum that they've just given their teams with a 1-0 start? Will Elias continue to dig deep into his interesting building tendencies? Will Casalis remember not to time out in future weeks? And I mean, hey, will Forai continue to crank out some very unique builds? I hope the answer to all these are yes. But we won't know until next week, so I hope you all enjoyed. I'll catch you in the next video, guys. Join as a member if you haven't already as well, because I'm uploading. Actually, no, I uploaded a video earlier today of a playthrough we're doing, so hey, if that interests you, come join us. Stick around for the fun. Catch you next one, though, guys. Peace.